Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 4th September 2018. The first article, The Nature of Dissent. What is this dissent? Dissent is an expression, it is a voice, it is a thought, it is an identity. We can see the dissent in various forms in our personal and social life. As we grow, we develop an identity of ourselves, and this identity is based on our views and opinions. And contrary to this, whatever we find or whatever we think, we try to express our voice against it. This is often stated to be the dissent. This way, I can state that dissent is essential for identity of an individual. Similarly, society, a social collective, also gives its opinion on good and bad. That creates an identity to that society. If we talk about Trump, if we talk about Prime Minister Modi, there are many groups expressing their dissent against them. That defines who they are. So, individual and social identities can be nurtured through dissent. And second thing is, dissent is also essential for the progress of community. If you take society and if you take scientific community, they are almost like a continuum. Science progresses through expression of dissent. And if we see how the atomic theory got developed, Rutherford, Bohr, and then many other developments which we see today, these have happened due to the dissent that is being expressed. And dissent also has an ethical dimension. What does that mean? Vulnerable communities who are deprived, they have only one natural thing with them, that is voice. So this voice is articulated and it gains strength that makes the governments to hear to them. If you talk about social movements, it is expression of dissent through a collective voice. And finally, dissent is not about criticism alone. Dissent is more and more about expression of a thought and a perspective. So here I can conclude it saying that dissent is not just essential for democracy, it is essential for the survival of human race itself. And we can also conclude saying it, the maturity of a society can be measured by the extent which it gives respect to the dissent. Beyond uniformity. This is about uniform civil code. You all know that DPSP, Directive Principles of State Policy, they talk about uniform civil code. It simply means that the personal laws of all the religions have to be one and the same. It means all the people living on the soil shall be guided by uniform laws. But in India, personal laws of various religions are not yet codified. And if we see, every religion is discriminatory against women. So, women need to be given an equal status as like men. It can be clearly stated this way. Women age of marriage is 18 years. For men it is expected to be 21 years. It is based on the social stereotype that women shall be smaller or younger than men. The second aspect is how to bring in uniform civil code. So, it has to be a random drastic act or it has to be a well planned persuasive act. So, what we can suggest is we can develop certain general principles based on gender justice, equality, non discrimination, etc. Let's keep these general principles and let's make various trajectories towards that. It means every religion has to be reformed, keeping these principles in mind. So that brings all the religion to a common point. Then we can go for the uniform civil code. The major reason here is uniform civil code is presented as a civil code of the majority. No. Uniform civil code is based on the general principles of living, general principles of equality. So that particular sense has to be driven across all the sections of the societies. Then there will be greater acceptance to uniform civil code. The next point over here is Among Hindus, we have divorce law. And there are many problems with regard to this divorce law. So, women were seen as vulnerable, and from their standpoint, divorce law is framed. So, getting divorce without the acceptance of women in India is very difficult. And the second, maintenance is paid to the woman, but however, no share in husband's property was given to women after divorce. That way, they are being discriminated again. So, in the West, the divorce is a section which we have is called no fault divorce. So, in India, what we have is a fault divorce. What is the difference between these two? A fault divorce means one has to give or find a fault with other woman or with the spouse to get this particular divorce. So, here, under no fault divorce, incompatibility can be a reason for divorce. So, as there is no fault divorce in India, husband raises various kinds of allegations against women, especially adultery or cruelty, etc. Similarly, women also raises various allegations, especially dowry harassment, domestic violence, etc. So this is leading to criminalization of a family relationship. So that's why the Law Commission recommends for introduction of no fault divorce. And the next, certain marriages gets broken beyond repair. But as the courts are not inclined to give divorce to them, they are being forced to live together. So that's why a marriage which is broken beyond repair shall be allowed for the divorce to that extent law has to be amended. And then, adultery is in discussion a lot. Adultery is criminalized in India. So, this decriminalization of adultery and making that as a ground for divorce, that is what is another point that is recommended over here. So, in a nutshell, this article talks about bringing in general principles of equality, non discrimination to make all the religions meet, and that shall be the ground for the uniform civil code. In a nutshell, UCC has to come through persuasion, not through legal force. Still too many children out of school. You know that it is more than a decade the right to education was enacted by Parliament. More than 1.5 decades, the Supreme Court has declared education as a fundamental right. In spite of this, 4.5 crore children are out of school, and there is a social pattern to this. Most of these out of school children are girls, and it is intricately connected with child labor. And further to this, vulnerable sections of the population and who have lesser opportunities in our socio-economic milieu or development, their children are going into child labor and are being deprived of education. So, in these circumstances, right to education provides for or facilitates for access, but economic access is not being addressed. So, it is talking about physical access but not the economical access. Physical access means a primary school has to be there within 1 kilometer radius and upper primary within 3 kilometer radius. Economic access means the family shall be able to send child to the school, and then quality of education is another concern for the families, especially in rural India. So the government also has to take steps towards improving economic access. Now here we have a great example in Brazil that is called Bolsa Familia. So here the financial incentives are linked to family in relation to the education of children. If children are going to school and getting educated, getting marks, the financial incentives, cash transfers to the family will increase. So our right to education also has to think beyond the physical access to school in providing economic access. The second aspect is related to safety and sanitation. So, building more toilets to girl students, separate toilets to them, and providing for various safety measures through safe transport to school. These are also things that need to be considered. Green shoots of revival. BIMSTEC. You know that BIMSTEC is a connection between South Asia and Southeast Asia. However, it was overshadowed by the SARC till date. There is no progress on trade and other front. So in this context, a summit is held in Nepal, and in this summit, some progressive decisions were taken. The first, any institution building what it needs a direction. So in international affairs, this direction is framed through a charter. It needs finances. So it also needs resources, especially human resources and leadership, to manage its affairs, and collaboration and connectivity. So these are the things that makes an institution. So now at Kathmandu summit, a charter is agreed on, and to build or to strengthen the BIMSTEC secretariat, extra finances are being spoken about, and BIMSTEC development fund is also coming into place, and human resources are also being planned. And above all, connectivity based on five focused areas is being talked about. Thailand has proposed for connectivity, especially road or physical connectivity, trade and investment connectivity, people to people, security, science and technology. These have to be the focus areas. And on the security front, the cooperation is increasing, especially Home Minister to Home Ministers meeting, and then National Security Advisors meeting, and people to people's contacts through parliamentarian civil society meetings. All these shows that there is a kind of engagement that is improving in BIMSTEC. But what is being told, what is the deliberation, and what is the action? There is a huge gap between these two. Motor vehicle agreement did not move forward, and then coastal security agreement, coastal shipping agreement, nothing moved forward, and free trade area, it has been aspired and desired, but it did not move forward. So we have to make our deliberations meet our actions to make the BIMSTEC effective. It has to be a dynamic, effective, and result oriented organization. That's what is the point. When the levee breaks, whenever we say something, treatment shall not be more harmful than the disease. So, when we make the disaster management and responses to disaster management shall not bring in new disasters. So, here our mechanisms to fight the disasters are ad hoc, and these ad hoc mechanisms are creating new disasters in the future. So, when Kosi floods have come up, we built various bunds or levees. These bunds got broke, and it has given worst floods later in Bihar. So, in this context, a long term preparation strategy is necessary. And then, talks on for logistics deal with Russia. You know, India signed Lemova agreement with United States of America, and similar kind of agreement to exchange or give access to each other to the military facilities is also being signed with Russia. A draft paper is getting ready. And finally, I gave you the notes at lax.in/CivilsPrep. Please visit that. Thank you very much. And before going into this, what are the points we need to remember? Dissent expresses the maturity of a society. Dissent is essential for an identity of an individual. It also has ethical connotations where dissent converts itself into voice of the marginalized for a policy action from the state, and it is the basis for the social movements. And dissent is essential for the progress of the society and knowledge as it creates perspectives. Those are the two statements you need to remember from today's newspaper. And the next is some factual points are being given with regard to BIMSTEC. But few days back, Harsh Pant, he wrote an article why BIMSTEC cannot move forward. What are the two major problems for the BIMSTEC? One is India is being considered as a big brother in BIMSTEC as like SARC. And the second is the financial position of the BIMSTEC is not very strong. So those 2 points have to be added to the existing article. And finally, child labor and right to education are always connected with each other. And in this context, Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act, though provides for certain remedial measures, it is not concrete. Along with the physical access, we also need to improve the economic access to the families, either by creating opportunities or through cash transfers, as like in Brazil. These are the points which you have to remember for your mains. Thank you very much and all the best. And thank you.